Hey there and welcome. My name is Pete and this is another one of those quarterly channel update videos, so let's talk a bit about what happened since the last one and what to expect from the channel in fall or autumn or whatever you want to call it of 2023. Looking back at the past few months, the big thing to talk about is most likely the end of the Mass Effect series. I know that I have talked about this before and at length, so I won't ramble on for too long here, but ending the trilogy playthrough still holds a very special place among the memories I've made with this channel. Mass Effect has been a big part of Pete Complete since day one. The first episode of Mass Effect 1 went up in March of 2016, just when I launched the channel, and now, well over 7 years later, the trilogy is finally complete. I can confidently say that I achieved my goal of making one of, perhaps even the most thorough and comprehensive playthroughs of the trilogy on YouTube, and at the same time Mass Effect taught me a lot about what the completionist approach to video games means and how much work it can sometimes be behind the scenes. But at the end of the day, seeing those elusive achievements unlock, even if I edit them in myself, and seeing the credits roll for the final time, that makes it all worth it. Nonetheless, the end of the trilogy does not necessarily have to mean the end of Mass Effect on this channel, and while I have no plans to play through Andromeda, I still have a few ideas for shorter one-off videos, a few tips and tricks for the games, some of my thoughts on them, what I think was handled well and what could have been improved, and then there's always Mass Effect 4, or 5 if we're counting Andromeda, lurking somewhere in the shadows, but most likely still quite some time away from a release. So we will probably see some other RPG take the spot of Mass Effect in the meantime. A few more words on how I would like to approach such a game in a minute, since there is one that caught my attention and hasn't really let go since. As some of you may know, September is usually the month where I take a vacation break to travel, and this year was no different. Although, just as a side note, I am pleased to say that it was probably not too noticeable, as I was able to pre-record an episode of XCOM in advance to fill the gap. Now, during that vacation I played a lot of Baldurs Gate 3. A few weeks ago I grabbed one of those refurbished Steam Decks, specifically so that I don't have to sit in front of my computer even more when I want to play a game just for myself, which is rare enough as it is, and conveniently enough it allowed me to play while on vacation, and Baldurs Gate has somehow managed to hook me in like few other games have in the last few years. For being such a complex game, it is also surprisingly enjoyable on the Steam Deck, so much so that I have now put in about 30 to 35 hours and I'm having an absolute blast. Now first things first, I don't want to get your hopes up. This does not mean that the game is guaranteed to appear on this channel, especially not as a fully fledged series, or at least not in the style with which I currently approach those. Baldurs Gate 3 is a long game, and by long I mean very long. Those 30 to 35 hours of game time, yeah, I have not even finished the game's first act yet, so this would be a project of a scope unlike anything ever before. And this is also why I am considering a slight change in the style of my videos, at least those I will release as part of a new playthrough in the future. I think I can best describe it as a light version of the completionist formula, which basically means some slightly heavier editing, a few more things cut out here and there, just so that a game like Mass Effect 3, for example, does not take 44 one-hour episodes over the span of 2 years to complete. Because this is honestly my big frustration that has somewhat built up over the last few years. There are just so many more games out there that I am able to play through on this channel, and I'm looking for a way to change that. I simply do not want you to feel like you can leave the channel be for a year if I start a new game that you don't enjoy. I want there to be variety, I want there to be more than just 2 or 3 games a year, but I also know that I cannot achieve that with the way I currently do things. A good example of what I mean would perhaps be one of my personal favorite YouTubers on the platform, John over at Many a True Nerd. A lengthy, true RPG masterpiece like Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic took him only 27 episodes to finish, and most of that comes down to editing style and to a willingness to cut stuff out. Now, I know that all of this goes somewhat directly against the completionist promise that I make in my channel description. You know the bit where it says you should never have to experience the feeling that you missed out on something, but at the same time it feels like you are missing out on entire games just because I don't want you to miss a cutscene or a few rounds of combat. At the moment, I am still very much unsure about how exactly I want to proceed here, how feasible all of this is, and how much I myself am willing to move away from the true form of completion, but I just wanted to put it out there and maybe hear what you think about all of this. How much of a role does the completionist aspect play for you when you go watch my videos versus those made by somebody else? Would you have enjoyed a Mass Effect playthrough with some fights, conversations, and interactions cut short? I know that full completion is pretty much at the heart of what I stand for, but perhaps you feel like it's possible for me to move away from that a bit if it means that I can show you many more of the games that I enjoy. Speaking of which, we are finally playing Rimworld again. After our adventures with the Cult of Jinx, it was only a matter of time, and I'm happy to say that the first episode with the Believers of Boyo was well received. The idea to play in the rainforest was pretty quickly found. The ideology centered around the guilty meme took a while longer, but I think it fits nicely and offers a good contrast to the Cult of Jinx without dictating the tone of the entire series too early on. So I am very much looking forward to how things develop in this series. At the moment it sounds like most of you are in favor of building another mountain base, so maybe we are going back to our ice sheet roots with this one. Now, at the same time, starting another Rimworld series somewhat plays into the dilemma I mentioned earlier. The game will now occupy a series slot for at least half a year, most likely even longer, and that leaves me with little flexibility to dive into other games in the meantime, at least until XCOM is done. So I think I am already going to test out some very minor changes with this Rimworld series. Nothing crazy, but perhaps a slightly faster pace. The setup with 5 colonists also allows us to quickly build up the basics, and who knows, maybe we can finish the series in around 30 episodes. At least for me, that is currently what I'm aiming for, not because I don't enjoy Rimworld anymore, but just to keep things fresh around here. I simply don't want someone who does not enjoy XCOM and Rimworld to go, oh well, looks like I'll come back in a year and see if Pete has finally moved on to another project. Still, with Rimworld, a faster pace is definitely easier to realize than it might be with other games, so I would appreciate any and all input on this. So if you know of a YouTuber, big or small, who plays through games with an enjoyable editing style without making you feel like you missed half the game, definitely leave those names in the comments and I'll check them out. And speaking of names, this now gives me a lovely segue into the final part of this video, as we can of course not wrap this up without giving a big shout out to all the new Patreon supporters who have joined since the last time we did this. So, a big thank you goes out to Ash Marshmallow Wolf, Flying Socky, Cheap Trickster, Nathan Quails, Sylvanus Mockus, Eric Mitchell, Cherim, Failquail, Anthony Halleck, Cloud Menace Bird, Moritz Schönhauer, Jakob Flor, Serge Matvenko, Lemmy Wings, Derek Thomas Jr., Cody Crandell, Steven, Lennart Schwentner, Fodo Castro, Shadow, Marvin Haas, Bigwig, Reklo, Ranso, Atlix, Nibbler, White Zero Devil Zero, Mars, Mika G, Binabig the Troll, Danny Nelson, Zenmaster, Mikolai, Fervida, Doyce, Ann Smith, Ethan, and Red Cooper. Thank you all so much for your support. I hope I pronounced all of your names correctly. If any of you joined the postcard tier or above, your postcards will hopefully be with you shortly. But regardless of what you joined and how long you'll stick around, I just want to say thank you. And with that, I was hopefully able to get you up to speed on some of the behind-the-scenes workings of Pete Complete. But of course, if you have any further questions, let me know in the comments and I'll try my best to answer them. For today then, let's make the cut at this point. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, then I would be very happy if you could leave a thumbs up. If you like what I'm doing and want to support me and my channel further, then you can of course go ahead and subscribe to stay up to date, grab some merch over on shop.petecomplete.com, or check out and maybe even pledge to the Pete Complete Patreon. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.